Welcome back to the second episode of Going Deep. This is Life with Fernandez. I'm Joe. I'm here with Mookies and Isotopes and Three Fingers Ghosts. We're all in studio today. And Sultans of Dallas, yes, will join us later on as well. Today we talk about, a number of stuff. We talk about high school baseball. We talk about sabermetrics. And, of course, the Gopher makes his usual appearance. So stay tuned for lovely podcasting. So, Kearshaw, Zach, tell us your grief.
Okay, well, this is different than my first year gaff, where I accidentally didn't click on keeping Giancarlo Stanton, and I kept, somebody awful instead. That would be the first year gaff. So that's different. I actually let him go because last year I would routinely win a ton of batting categories and didn't have enough pitching to win the other categories. I only had Kershaw and the walking hospital last year that was that was Strasburg, who ironically I kept this year. So I need to free up some cash, so to get some other guys. But so yeah, the strikeouts and the ERA and stuff like that are making me feel like a complete idiot. But
just to recap, he is on pace for over 300 strikeouts, I believe.
Yeah.
His second season in a row, mind you. Last year was, I believe, his first season with 300 Ks.
I was rolling the dice a bit, thinking that he was going to have a come-down season by his standards, although I thought it was still pretty good. I wasn't thinking this kind of start, though.
I guess he struck out every batter in the Mets lineup the other day, except for one.
That's pretty good, I guess.
Now, Zach, to be fair, you did keep Mike Trout for $50, which is not a bad keeper.
No, I did keep Trout, yeah. I did keep Trout, and I just changed up a couple other things to be a little more versatile with some things, hopefully. So I took a flyer on a couple guys like Yu Darvish, who's on the DL. I got him for cheap, so I'm just saving him for a while until he comes off here in May. But it's going okay so far, seemingly.
So, Zach, what was your keeper strategy? Was it just to draft players that have names that sound like actual objects, like Trout and Belt?
Yeah. That was part of it. Souza, famous people, So, Pillar instead of Pillar, that's an object. Shield. There's all sorts of things. Hill. Yes, I do have a lot of names of objects. But last year, my strategy was to draft every possible person that could be put on the DL, so I decided to go different from that this year. So,
how'd you feel about the draft?
Pretty good, actually. I promptly showed up to overpay for Craig Kimbrell, but that's all right.
That was on the spot, too, wasn't it? You just arrived, and, there was 2 seconds left in Craig Kimbrell.
I literally walked in and made my presence known, and then thought, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I think the strategy for the draft this year was a lot more saving some money towards the end, because I just saw a lot of good players that are still on the board, and everybody's used up their cash the past couple years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think Victor Martinez 2 years ago, when he had that pretty darn good season, went for $1 or $2 late. So that just kind of stuck in my head as there's probably some gems there.
Yeah, Gio Gonzalez was a great pick.
Yeah, I'm liking it.
Zach, you also had an interesting strategy of keeping Lightning and Thunder in the draft as long as possible. So
yeah. We both had some shortstop and second base issues at the time, and I think I stole every player 3 in a row that he wanted to have. So
even one that was a couple seconds again left, there was a bump up in there. That one was pretty funny.
Yeah, I'm actually nervous about seeing him in public because he might still remember that too much.
Well, you better hope it's in public and not in private, where he might be able to get away with it. He's going to do it.
That's true. I need to have plenty of witnesses around. Is that what
You end up like Jose Batista. I think in some of the pictures you can actually see Jose Batista's jaw moving.
Jeez.
So that's quite interesting.
Do you see the scouting report from when he was in minors for this Oder who punched him? The scout, quote unquote, said he is not somebody that you want to F with.
Nice.
They had pulled that scouting report and showed it after this incident. So interestingly, I actually had an interaction with Jose Batista this spring.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, right? I took the baseball team, the high school baseball team I coached, down to Florida for spring break. And opening week, Tampa Bay was playing Toronto. And a lot of my guys are Toronto fans for whatever reason. I don't know, they're bandwagoners or something, I don't know. But good for them. Jose Batista was being heckled terribly by some Rays fans that were then kicked out later. It was actually quite funny. 3 police officers and like 12 security guards later.
These were not your players.
No, these were not my players, no. No, my players were fans, so they started a couple cheers, hip hip Jose and some others, and we actually got his autographs after the game and everything. I didn't, the players did. I just was standing around talking to him. Pretty nice guy, though. So to get punched in the face, I wasn't expecting that tonight.
And his slide wasn't even that bad.
That's here's the thing. I mean, he did get drilled in the ribs, right? So, like, clearly, was he trying to slide late? Yeah, but he was also trying to break up a double play, which has happened for a century and a half or longer in baseball. Like, that's what you do. So, I don't know. I think it was...
it's like steroids, let the boys play.
Yeah, that's right. That was the other common factor in my team last year. They were either on the DL all year or they had been, accused of steroid use in their career at some point. So, no, I don't know. I'm just old school enough where that kind of stuff, I just think if you need to fight about it, then go play some other sport, not baseball, because that's how baseball is played. You get a double play gets tried to get broken up.
As a fantasy owner, do you sit him to teach him a lesson?
As a fantasy owner?
Can we suspend him in our league?
If you can, we definitely should.
Wait, who are we suspending now? Oder?
Yeah.
Does anybody own him?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't remember who exactly. It could be Conquistadors, actually. Let me look it up. Yeah, it is him.
Wait, that's who I'm playing right now. Yeah, suspend him. Go ahead. I don't know, but what do you guys think? Do you think it's just baseball, or do you think it was cheap or dirty, or what?
I think Oder just flipped.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, like, I don't think he's justified at all, the fighting piece.
Like, it's a professional sport, you gotta, like, keep your cool and be a professional.
Yeah, that would be like the fantasy equivalent was like that guy who used to play in our league that just flipped on our message board.
Yes.
That was a virtual punch to the face. But speaking of terrible things, Mookie's, so last year we did something called the Ofer Gopher. Showcase players who were really sucking it up. And we figured no one else showcased them, so we might as well. But then this week, interestingly enough, Mookie's has almost the same case with his pitching staff. So in the opposite direction.
Right. Can we make my pitching staff the Ofer Gopher of the week, even though they're intended for hitters?
I think we have to.
I've never, certainly haven't seen anything like that in my own experience in fantasy sports. I should probably wait a second. I'm going to look this up so it's actually accurate. But I'm looking up my actual ERA.
Oh my goodness.
Hey, careful what you say, Mike. Come on.
You got to put the whip in there too.
Well, you do have an O there underneath the win column just for starters.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So here we go. It's the end of the week now. I've had several starts, and my ERA is just shy of 10. My whip is just under 2. And I have no wins. And a whopping 33 strikeouts. I'm really happy and confident in my pitching going forward.
Who has the highest ERA out of your pitching staff for that week?
If Keuchel at 12.
Liriano takes the ERA cake, I think, for starters anyway. Keuchel had 12.
He's got a healthy 2.79 whip as well.
See, but before the season started, when we chose our keepers and before the draft, I thought I was in decent shape insofar as my pitching was concerned. I didn't have any elite guys like a Kershaw or a Scherzer, but I did have a number of guys who were ranked pretty highly or thought of well. And it was honestly, I kept most of the staff, all the key players from last year, the staff that won me the league. And now I've got guys like Keuchel and Gray who simply can't find the strike zone. I watched Gray start, but was it just last night? And he was, falling behind in the count with almost every batter. So I'm a little worried about those guys since I was counting on them to be really reliable options.
Yep.
Well, Keuchel was really great for you last year.
Oh yeah. So this year I think something's got to be wrong. His numbers are so bad across the board on every measure you could think of. He's got to be hurt or something like that.
I don't think it's unreasonable to say that Liriano could post a walk per inning pitch this year.
Early in his career, he had one season where he was striking out an incredible number, but was also giving up a lot of bases. And he kind of had an artificially low ERA because of it. And it seems like it's like one of those things that now he can't do that anymore.
Zach, what do you think about all these new people in our league? Both how they drafted and how they're doing now. Conquistadors and joined last year, and I mean he's having another great year. Pissed Off Possums finished 9-3 last week, and then is winning, and then won this week 10-1.
Yeah, well, I made the comment in the draft that they were living up to their name in the fact that they were pissing me off during the draft.
Yep, me as well.
They kept getting kind of my players that I wanted. Thus proving me right at this point, I guess, that I should have just, taken them instead of letting them get away. But no, I thought they did a great job drafting. They rounded out their team really nicely. Unlike some of the guys in the past, which included me the first year, they weren't losing out on some of those hidden gems that you guys do such a great job researching. I think it was it Mike this year that you had your hidden 5 or 6 that we were trying to guess who they were?
Joe.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
There's less and less of that's able to sneak by people, I think. And so these guys, I think, found some of those diamonds that we were thinking would go a little bit cheaper. I'm guessing, and if you guys felt the same way I did, but
yeah, it came to a point where my strategy was to wait and get Pissed Off Possums and Dwarven Decimators out of the draft before I would put out the players that I wanted, because I knew I otherwise would not get them. So my best strategy was to sit.
Yeah, well, I think I ended up doing the same thing almost, because I got into a couple bidding wars and just said, man, I need more players than they do. They did a great job with it.
Yep, hats off. And we love to see this because we have in the past had people join the league and then not even set their lineup each week. So to see them making moves and drafting like champs is great for the league, personally.
Oh yeah. This is if I I'm a little biased here, but if I say so, this is the best dang fantasy baseball league out there, I think.
This is it.
Absolutely.
Huh?
Yeah.
This is the pinnacle. One thing that I was going to bring up, I was listening to some sports radio, and they brought something up, so I was kind of looking it up a bit, and I'm trying to find it here. But they were talking about the Kansas City Royals and how they were talking about some advanced metrics, and I'm trying to look up the metric because it was one that I hadn't heard of much. Maybe one of you guys has. But it's basically the idea that they're swinging at balls that aren't strikes, and how they did it a lot last year, but were able to put balls in play and work walks and things out of it, and how they're not this year. And how a lot of the advanced metric people basically said that they would falter this year because that stat wouldn't play out the same positive way next year if they kept being so aggressive at the plate.
I don't know. I have mixed feelings about sharing any of my sources for information or my own analysis and things that I could potentially use to get an edge. But there are places you can go to get those kind of advanced statistics, which is really one of the things I love about fantasy baseball relative to other sports like hockey, is that there's just a wealth of data out there. And for me, that helps. It helps me distill all the information that's out there and make decisions. Although now I am questioning all of my strategy after seeing my pitcher's performance.
Baseball's so much a game of averages statistically as things work out. Across a week, 162 games, whatever you want to look at. You look at an individual game, and you might look at the stat book and say, hey, that player was 2 for 4, and pretty good game. But the 2 outs that he had were rocket shots that players made great plays on, and the 2 hits he had were bloops. That's kind of where you can get into any given day. You might have somebody that's not swinging a good bat that gets some hits versus somebody who's hitting the ball really hard but hits it right at guys. That's part of the things that I like about baseball is that it's not as predictable on any given day, but averages do play out over time.
Yep. There was a statistic that Lightning and Thunder actually used to like to mention, and I forget exactly what it was, but it was something along the lines of the difference between a 300 hitter and a 250 hitter is 1 hit a week. The idea being that these guys, these major leaguers, are all really so good and so capable of performing well. You know what I mean? If you're hitting 250 versus 300, that's 5% difference in your odds of getting a hit.
Yep. And Yogi Berra was the one who started off all these statistics, right? I mean, 90% of the game is mental and the other half is physical.
Yes. Yeah. Here's the true father of sabermetrics.
Yeah.
You think it's Bill James.
Not Bill James.
90% of the game is half mental. Yeah. The advanced metric that we were just talking about with Kansas City, it's interesting. Before, we just, on the eye test, would call that back control, right?
Hello.
Well, hello there.
Hello.
That's a handsome sound.
It's my pleasing baritone radio voice. Although I haven't been speaking in that.
That's delightful. Sorry, I interrupted what was undoubtedly a profound thought.
Yeah, well, it's full of hot air, probably. So, no, I was just saying that how some of those advanced metrics, I like some of them a lot because they give some credence to what we say the old eye test. So we just talk about Kansas City swinging at everything that anybody throws anywhere near the plate. We used to call that just back control. And, how do you rate that? Well, there's now statistics that can measure that. That old school idea of back control, like that was just, we'd call it, but we never had any metrics backing that up. It was just something you would either judge well or not.
Yes.
As a player or a manager,
So Sultan's Dallas, what do you think? What are your thoughts on sabermetrics?
It sounds delightful. I'm convinced just from this little piece I just heard.
So it's fair to say you don't use advanced statistics too much in your evaluation of players?
For my own evaluation of players?
Yeah.
That's actually a good question. I do a very limited use. I use advanced statistics only in a really limited capacity, though that's more because I simply haven't taken the time to look at them. I'm sure if I did it, I would find them useful. But there are some that I pay attention to, in particular XFIP with pitchers. I'd say, and some of your really basic advanced stats like BABIP and hard hit rate, the slugging percentage. Well, slugging percentage isn't really an advanced stat, but yeah, anything. I think it would be useful to use them, but it's just not something that I really have done all that much. Which I'm not sure what that says then about the way in which I have constructed my teams, because the teams have tended to do okay.
Yeah, it's an understatement.
I'm not sure if that's an outlier. And so I don't know if that may be better if I use advanced stats or what have you, or maybe it's because a lot of the decisions are based on information that's coming from people who already use advanced stats.
Yeah, I would wager that's.
So I'm indirectly using.
Well, I think you've got a point with maybe some of the info we're getting secondhand still is using those advanced stats at times, because I feel kind of the same way, and I think it's probably because I've been, at the high school level, you're not using those stats just because it's so hard to track anything like that beyond what you do in the scorebook. But for football, I can say that we're using a lot more advanced statistics because of the video technology now. But for baseball, I think because of that in the coaching aspect, I've relied on kind of the eye test, reading up on other people's analysis, things like that. Is that kind of what you're saying there, Sultans, with just kind of finding a trusted source and going with some of the trends?
So basically, to say what I said in a more concise format, I kind of do what Zach is talking about in terms of the old version of doing advanced stats, which is you watch the players play and you watch their approach and you make evaluations based on an eye test, basically, I suppose. So if my players are in a slump, then I watch what they're doing at the plate and see if there's anything I can notice. And it's not like I know all that much, but I can tell in general if a guy's struggling, if it looks to be a technical issue or if there's something else that's going on. So, and I don't watch all my players at every single at bat or something along those lines, but I do try to be aware of how each player on my roster actually looks.
Yep. Which you were fortunate enough then to have caught Scherzer's performance, correct?
Oh, that was beautiful.
Oof, that was something. I was thinking he was getting 21.
Oh, I know.
I really thought he was going to hold the record all by himself.
Yeah,
he had struck out that last batter I think 3 times already that game. So it's interesting that he couldn't do it on the last one.
Yeah.
But you got to think if you're that guy, you're just trying to put the bat on the ball. You don't really care where it goes.
Right. Exactly.
Oh, it was totally a protective swing he made too. It wasn't like he, really got a lot on it.
I'm surprised he didn't bunt.
That'd be a total big move.
Bunt it right back at him and say, "We're losing, but you're not getting a strikeout."
Yeah.
I was actually on the wrong end of a perfect game this year. First one I've ever seen. I was coaching on the wrong end of one.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie. We tried to drag bunt in the last inning. So
you put the heavy kid in and had him lean in on the plate.
Yeah, seriously. It was the guy was throwing about 91 with movement and had a killer curveball, so we were just he carved us up. So well done him.
Did you mark his name down so you could draft him in the future?
Yeah, well, we'll see how he plays out here. He's got a long ways to go. Yeah.
That's the real reason that Zach coaches high school ball. You can get the edge on some of these new prospects.
You know what? 7 or 8 years from now, you guys are in trouble. Just saying. So, when all these guys get to prime playing age here. No, but you're right with the eye testing, because there's something, and maybe it's just because I'm a little bit old school in that way. There's something that the stats just don't always tell me, just by looking at them either. Like you said, how they're swinging the bat sometimes is indicative of whether it's really a slump, or are they really swinging the bat well and just having quote unquote bad luck? Because there's some guys you don't want to change anything in their swing, even when they're not hitting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Same way with pitchers. Scherzer the other night. I mean, how do we quantify the fact that he could throw a two-seam fastball down the plate, plate the thing, and guys weren't touching it, which we've seen before with him and with Kershaw and some others. There's something, whether it's a deception, whether it's a just the way the ball moves where you don't see it as well, but where, that ball at the same velocity from another pitcher in the same location is going to get tagged. You know what I mean? And there's just something to that the eye test kind of helps with. I'm not saying it's the be-all, end-all and get rid of advanced stats by any means, but...
A good example of the eye test would be looking at pictures of Barry Bonds when he was younger and comparing the shift in the stats along with the shift in his body figure.
We don't have a good way to quantify steroid use yet to identify which players are juicing.
Yeah, that's right.
Ben, do you have any thoughts on Joe's pickup of Jackie Bradley Jr. and the little bit of money that he put down on him?
Oh, the $20 bid enabled him to outbid no one else.
To be fair, he's doing well and may continue to do so, but my reasoning behind that is that I always have money left over at the end of the year, like an astronomical amount, somewhere in the 80s. And the really good players are going to go at the very start. That was immediately after his big 6 RBI game where he had 2 home runs. So it was fair to say that other people were going to be going for him. And there had already been bids, I believe, in the past of close to $5. So I didn't think it was unreasonable that he could go for something like 10. And I was like, well, just for kicks, I might as well make sure I get him because he's the only player I'm going to add this year. It'll be really good. But sometimes you just get a feeling, and you don't need to look at a player. Like the stats can give you a feeling. So that's how I pick players.
Joe just goes with his gut.
Fair enough.
Looks at the guy's name on a page and says, yeah, I got a good feeling about this. No, I think you're right, though, about the early season pickups, that there can be more opportunity there. Those can be pretty crucial. And my strategy is not to save up the money either, hoping for one big drop, a player who shouldn't have been dropped, and then I can make sure that I get him. I try to go for the players that I want to get along the way, and usually I'll end up with something closer to zero in terms of my waiver budget, but that's actually a good thing.
Yep. The only other thing you would save money for would be when those prospects start being pulled up from the minors, like, I don't know, 2/3 of the way through the season. But that's so far down the road, and the chances of them pinning out that season, are relatively small compared to the value you can get from picking up a player early on in the season.
We do have June coming up. So
we do have June coming up. Yeah. Well, it does seem to me as well that reasoning is sound, in particular when you look at the potential for impact rookies this year. It doesn't seem to be last year was such a season for rookies, impact rookies, guys you would pick up and they would immediately contribute on your roster. That if there's a player that you like early in the season, like you're saying that you wanted the player, and $20 assures that you're going to get that player. So I have no problem with making a bid like that, where if you want a player and you're going to have to pay for him, then you go ahead and do it. So
yep.
that seems to me, and I think you're right as well, that early on in the season, some of those players that are outperforming any sort of expectation that you would have had for that player, they might be doing the kind of thing where they play over their head and then that's going to end in a month or that's going to end in a week or whatever may be the case. But on the rare chance that they're the guy that keeps it up all year, that's entirely worth it. Or you get a situation like I did a couple seasons ago where I waited, and I think everybody else was waiting too, on a player like Dominic Brown, who kept hitting home runs despite the fact that his fly ball to home run rate was just not sustainable, and he also was barely putting the balls over the fence. I mean, he shouldn't have been hitting that many home runs, but he was, and he continued to do so, so it worked out for that year, and then he was terrible the next year.
Yeah, I liken some of that to, if you're new, what are pitchers going to try and do to you? Basically they're going to try and say, hey, okay, hit me. And, you can kind of get a jump on that. And then when pitchers learn about you and start saying, hey, this dude can't hit a changeup or a curveball or can't hit anything to, on the outside part of the plate because he'll try and pull everything, then you see some of those guys have this monster start and then fall off in that sense. Mm-hmm. Knowledge is not something that can, knowledge of those weaknesses isn't something that can be hidden for that long. Yeah. So some of those guys that jump in and make an immediate splash, we all get excited because dramatic entry can sometimes be just a false flag on that.
Yeah, it's kind of like when Ben switched high schools after his freshman year, and for the first semester maybe he was the ladies' man because he was the new kid who just. But eventually that wore off.
The advanced stats showed that was not sustainable.
Great analogy.
When you come back to Earth, you come hard. Do you think that's what Jose Bautista said to Odor earlier today?
Pretty much. Do you think I should do the next podcast in some other voice the whole time like that?
Yeah, what if you had somebody act like they were one of the other managers? One of the new managers we don't know.
Oh, that'd be great.
There we go. We're just going to assign them some random celebrity impression voice.
Conquistadors is some Spanish speaker, and Pissed Off Possums just get some animal noise.
Connected to their team. That was really funny.
I like the idea that the Conquistadors is really a Spanish gentleman that we that league.
Which is also because if you know Scott, you know he's not Spanish.
He's not a gentleman.
But he definitely is a gentleman.
Oh, definitely.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for joining us here on Going Deep. Please comment, please view, and if you would like to be on the show, let us know on the thread, and we'll get you on some way or another. But you have to be as good as Zach, Capua, or better. Thanks. Have a great week.
Bye-bye.
That won't be hard.